Right, welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. This was only a matter of time. Linda Hamilton would be quite happy to never return to Terminator. This was only a matter of time. We'd already seen James Cameron distance himself from the project. We'd already seen Tim Miller distance himself from the project. And then we also saw both of them fighting it out for the blame of the project as well. And Linda Hamilton, she's not one to mince her words. It was only a matter of time that she would come out and say something as well. It's interesting. I think that this spells disaster, I guess, for the future of Terminator, unless it can be, well, as per her comments, put on, lower budgets and things like that, which I think is going to be, realistically, an interesting discussion point for the tail end of this video. So let's get into the news, and then we'll discuss realistically the future of the Terminator franchise and where it lies, because I'd love to hear your thoughts personally as well. But before we get into it, please do hit subscribe. For returning subscribers, please make sure you are subscribed, because YouTube is systematically unsubscribing people, and you might be, and you might not know it. So let's get into it, right? The actor, who has fond memories of making Dark Fate, confirms that she has made peace with leaving Sarah Connor behind, and the film's box office disappointment. Today's audience is just so unpredictable. No. I think anyone could have really predicted that this was going to happen when Tim Miller comes out and starts attacking the fan base instantly, and being on the defensive nature where no one was attacking it. The kind of comments that were being thrown around were just unreal. Misogynists will be this and blah blah blah, in a franchise that was spearheaded by one of the original strong female characters, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor. So I don't think her comments here are right. The fact that the audience is unpredictable, I completely disagree with that. I don't think any audience was going to respond well to that sort of behavior. No audience really does. No fans respond well to that sort of behavior. But anyway, it continues, right? Despite returning to the best reviewed Terminator film in almost 3 decades, Dark Fate star Linda Hamilton won't be back as Sarah Connor. So that's it. Her role is done. After a quiet box office run of $261 million worldwide for Tim Miller's Dark Fate, Hamilton isn't optimistic about her return or this latest Terminator story continuing, even though a trilogy was mapped out in advance. So yeah, it's done. Like, it's dead. It's completely dead. Now, she goes on to say, and I quote, "I would really appreciate maybe a smaller version where so many millions are not at stake. Today's audience is just so unpredictable." Now, there was no reason why that movie cost as much as it did. Like, they shot a lot of it in an old, like, abandoned lot. And then a lot of the other stuff was just nonsense CGI. And action scenes, which I'm sure you'll agree with me, although the action was fine, it was unnecessary because it didn't actually have the impact that they wanted it to have. The action scenes are wholly forgettable. They're not unforgettable action scenes. They're very forgettable action scenes. And they're fine. Like, the action was fine, but it's very forgettable action. If you think about Terminator Dark Fate, I'm sure it's not really the action that pops out into your mind about it. It's probably some of the janky dialogue or strange story decisions. It's probably not going to be the action. And that's a sign of very forgettable action. So there was no reason that this movie should have cost anywhere near as much as it did. And a lot of that comes down to the over-bloating of CGI. They have to appoint quite a lot of money for CGI, which is bad show. And again, comments about the audience being unpredictable, they're really not unpredictable. They're really, really not. And as well, like, they knew that this movie was not going to do very well. They knew that it was not going to do very well. That was very much predicted. And you knew that from the marketing, because they just had to keep pouring out marketing constantly. just giving you absolutely everything from the story just to try and get you in to watch it. Because, again, they'd gone on the offensive straight away, attacking people. No one was interested. So yeah, let's continue. I can't tell you how many laymen just go, well, people don't go to the movies anymore. It should definitely not be such a high-risk financial venture, but I would be quite happy to never return, so no, I am not hopeful, because I would really love to be done. And again, like, the point of people don't go to the movies anymore is nonsense. They do. They absolutely go to the movies. Joker proved that. And I say Joker proved that because it really did. Because people will point to Avengers Endgame as being, you know, yeah, people go to the movies. True. But remember, Joker came out after Endgame. So if people weren't going to the movies, they would have skipped Joker. Because Endgame was more of an event film for, you know, over a period of like a decade or something like that. Whereas Joker was just a singular movie. So Joker was the evidence that people absolutely do go to the movies. Now, as well received as Dark Fate was, scoring 70% and 82% amongst critics and audiences on Rotten Tomatoes, there were a number of die-hard fans who were upset over the film's opening scene. That saw another T-800 Terminator gun down John Connor 3 years after the events of Terminator Judgment Day. But for Hamilton, it was a necessary story point. I'd love to see her actually reason this, so let's get into it. I don't think Sarah and John would be there at all if they were still fine and strong. I thought it was a great leaping off point for my character, Hamilton explains, to create a new fuel and fire for Sarah Connor. I thought it was a very good story point. I'm not one that clings to past ideas, I just think it's much more interesting to launch from a new place. Maybe, but no. Yeah, no. Like, she'd been offered to come back multiple times to explore bits and pieces, and she'd always refused. The money would have probably been the reason. Yeah, I'm very surprised at the justification there, but never mind. In a recent conversation with THR, Hamilton also discusses her bond with co-stars Mackenzie Davies and Natalia Reyes, developing Sarah's somber backstory in the process of rediscovering Sarah after almost 3 decades. I know you didn't buy into a lot of the adjectives that are said about you and Sarah, but the two of you really set the bar for how multi-dimensional female characters are written and portrayed in genre cinema. How and when did it first become apparent to you that Sarah had transcended the first 2 movies? So anyway, it's an interesting question, but let's see her response. Within a half a year of Judgment Day's release, there was still such a stir about how I looked. At this point, I was going, put that down. There was so much else that I did for that part. The strength, the build of the body, whatever, had clearly captured the imagination on quite a global level. So that was when I realised that, at least, was going to linger for a long time. Which is true, yeah, the physicality was definitely a thing. But it was also, like, it was chucked up in the trailers and stuff. So, yeah, like, of course it would be the thing that people point out. Dark Fate is unique for a genre film because it has 3 generations of women looking out for each other, and from behind the scenes photos that I've seen, it seems like you, Natalia Reyes and Mackenzie Davies had a genuine bond on set. Was that sisterhood the most valuable takeaway from this experience? Sisterhood. Yes! I've never felt as united with my actors that I've worked with, ever, until these 2 ladies. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? That was a bond forged in fire. It really took and we leaned on each other hard. I love them as actors, I love them as ladies, and I love them as women that are fierce, intelligent, informed and considerate of the earth. They were just a blessing. And I think you have to put Tim Miller in there too. It was really Tim and the 3 muses. Tim was very much a part of that relationship. At any given moment, 2 of us were hugging him, and if there was a room for a third, we were like that. Truly, it sounds silly, I know, but we wouldn't have made it without him, that's for sure. No, you're right. Don't think anyone would have made that film. James Cameron's decision to kill John Connor at the beginning, so it was his decision, remember, of Dark Fate was very controversial among certain fans, but to me, there really isn't a movie if Sarah isn't fueled by her rage and hatred of Terminators. Plus, after 5 movies with John as a focal point, I think the franchise needed to forge a new path without him. I also tend to believe that Sarah wouldn't join the new fight if she and John were both alive and well. So where do you stand on the decision to kill John? Now, I do find this interesting, right? This is a THR reporter saying, no, definitely, it's justified, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but look how disconnected you are from the end result. Like near universally, I know some people like it, but near universally, people really hated that decision. That's a very good point that you just said. I don't think Sarah and John would be there at all, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a great leaping off point, so this is stuff that I've already, actually spoken about. Now, I'm not one that clings to ideas of the past. Judgment Day is about John, but John wouldn't exist without Sarah. Then something else will happen, and Sarah will have to die. That is kind of the nature of life, and I would like that to be the nature of franchises, where it's not just the same story retold each time. I just think it's much more interesting to launch from a new place. Yes, agreed, whatever. So where do we go from here? Because she raises an interesting point, right? Very, very interesting point. She says, and I quote, "I can't tell you how many laymen just go, well, people don't go to the movies anymore. It should definitely be not such a high-risk financial venture." She doesn't want to return. She's hopeful. She's not hopeful about returning, and she would really love to be done. So she is done. If she's saying, I would love to be done, she's done. Because she doesn't have to turn. She doesn't have to come back, unless they did actually sign her on. Which they're not going to make another one of these, because they just can't. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about the future of the Terminator franchise. Where does it lie? Does it lie on streaming? Sarah Connor Chronicles are... A lot of people seem to really, really like it. Now, obviously, kind of, mixed bag because of the CGI and the effects and things like that. But surely they could just bring that back, because there's a lot of fans out there for that. Or simply just stop the bloody franchise. Is the future of this franchise to be played out on comics and in games and things like that? Maybe. For me personally, I think the only future that this franchise has now is on streaming, and after about 10 years. Just give it a rest. Give it a rest. Then bring it back on streaming. When these things are easier to make and the budgets don't get blown out. 10 years time, budget for this could be nothing, because the effects are so easy to manufacture. So that's my kind of take home from this. It's interesting. She's done. She's out for good. It goes to show these kind of comments they're not thrown out lightly. She doesn't have to return unless contracted. But even if she is contracted, you better believe they're not making another one of these. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please do let me know down below in the comment section. If you are new here, do hit subscribe. Stay up to date on the world of pop culture and movie news by hitting the bell notification icon. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I have been Mr. H. Take care.